The following video contains intense footage of traditional 3D character modeling polygon by polygon, UV adjustments for textures using the UDIM technique, fine touch-ups in ZBrush, and finally, bone adjustments in Blender, something I've never done before. For this reason, this video is rated I for insane for a Blender novice like me. If you're not ready for this kind of torture, please don't watch this video. Thank you very much, and sorry for any inconvenience.
Good day, 3D artists! Can you imagine an elephant leaving its peaceful meadow to become a nomadic warrior? Now imagine someone who has never worked with Blender, and for whom it's not even a secondary software, daring to do this. Well, welcome to Horncave, where we'll be creating this mysterious character step by step and tackling a new tool like Blender. If you're new to the channel, remember that we're doing this series of Blender exercises to familiarize ourselves with this 3D modeling software, and, at the same time, update our PolyCave add-on with improvements. The first thing we'll do is find a character online that's a bit more complex and has more elements to model. I have this character, but you can choose any other. The workflow will be the same. Once we have our concept defined, we'll move on to modeling in Blender. We've already covered these steps in previous exercises, so I'll just show you the most important stages. Starting with a plan, we can begin with the eyes. We don't need to model the entire character, just half is enough. With our reference images in the background, we can begin. I've been working on this exercise for 2 weeks in my free time, so if you're free, you can easily have it ready in a week or less. The workflow I'm using in this exercise is to model the entire character with its general details and then add fine details in ZBrush while keeping the same model. This way, we can progress more safely and without getting too tired. Now we'll simply model all the elements of our model, using basic tools like moving vertices and polygons, as well as extruding them to create new polygons. This modeling approach could be considered one of the first to be used once technology allowed adding bones to complete models without the need to divide them by joints. Character artists would design the front and side views, and then the 3D artist was responsible for interpolating those two views into a 3D model, gradually adjusting every vertex and polygon. It's a bit time-consuming at the beginning, but in a few hours, we'll already have our character's basic shapes. You can search the internet for these types of character views, which will serve as references for you. By this stage, I had almost the entire model finished, although I think the snout ended up with more polygons than necessary. I suppose I'll improve the retopology a bit more in future updates. For this part, we will continue using the Extrude Edges tool and then adjust the vertices. As always, the face is the most complicated part, but we have the wrinkles in our favor, which will serve as a guide for placing the edges and achieving a closer resemblance to the conceptual idea. To model the cape, I only need the base model. You just have to take a part of your base model and duplicate it into a separate model. In PolyCave, you can find this more simply in Detach Clone inside the Mesh Tools tab. With the duplicated model of this area, we will slowly emphasize the fabric folds in a very simple way, and then we will continue with the rest of the model. To model the arms, everything was simpler. By this stage, I was already satisfied with our character's torso and face, so I moved on to modeling the arms. As you can see, they are just simple cylinders with some intermediate edges to be able to scale them and achieve a shape closer to our reference. Paradoxically, having so many decorative elements on the arms helped me not to pay as much attention to the topology of the shoulders or the rest of the arms, since they would be covered by bandages and leather armor. Remember that no matter how simple our character is, there are body parts like the knees and elbows that need special treatment. While modeling, we don't notice these details until it's time to incorporate the bones, and that's when we see the joints deform incorrectly. So, always remember to pay attention to these details from the start. And to finish this first part, the legs were still missing. This was an extremely simple task because, remember, here we are only looking to model our character's general shapes, and in the same way we modeled the arms, we will do the same with the legs. It is important to handle these details correctly from the beginning. With just a few days of practice, we will have a character like this one, extremely simple, yet as faithful as possible to our reference, and this is exactly what we need to move forward. From this point on, hell on earth will break loose. We are going to bring out all the character's decorative elements, and believe me, there are quite a few. For this step, I will only show you a part of it, since we have already reviewed all of this in the previous exercise. But the advice I can give you for this part is to have a lot of patience and trust the process. When modeling traditionally, it takes time to create all the basic decorative models, and it was during this stage that I thought about abandoning the project. However, every time I finished a part, I felt encouraged to finish the rest. Creating the bandages was very simple. We select the entire leg and copy it as a separate object. Then, using the knife tool, we cut into this duplicate until we achieve the general shapes. We will separate each cut and apply the solidify modifier to give the bandage some volume. In the original concept, these didn't have much volume, but I decided to increase it a bit more to give the character more overall bulk. Then, I focused on adding some very simple folds and moved on to the rest of the bandages. For the waist fabrics, I created a plane and adapted it to the character's contour. I readjusted the amount of unnecessary polygons in this area and continued adding loops to the edges so that the mesh wouldn't round off too much at the borders. I applied the mirror modifiers and then the solidify modifier to generate volume. At this point, we had most of it finished, and throughout this stage, I dedicated myself to giving volume and simple folds to the fabrics. If you are new to modeling in Blender like me and don't fully master the cloth simulation tools, the most recommended approach is to achieve simple shapes that are faithful to the original concept's proportions, as in the next step, we will focus on improving those folds and treating the mesh in a more realistic and detailed way. For the arms, the process was the same, and remember, the important thing here is just to achieve the basic shape. We are not trying to reach the final model yet. We are following a more deliberate workflow without leaving too many things to chance. The goal of this exercise is to train ourselves for any type of project, which is why it's more important to reach the general form. It's then up to each individual to take it to the next level. But first, we will dedicate our energy to finishing this first stage, which is the most important. Keep in mind that once the overall model is finished, we can boast about having a great start in Blender. And here is the nearly finished model. As you can see, we have tweaked the bandages, the leather armor, and of course we gave the cape a touch-up. It went from being a spoon-shaped cape to a new spoon-shaped cape Pro Edition. Now, I'll leave you with a simple comparison with our first model, and you can tell me in the comments whether the details matter or not. With the model ready, the next step was to adjust the UVs. For those who don't know what UVs are, they are simply data stored in our 3D model to tell the texture how it should be applied to the model's surface. In practice, this means assigning a series of seams to our model so that Blender knows where to separate and flatten the 3D model to convert it into a 2D format. Blender comes with several algorithms responsible for correctly flattening our UVs, but depending on the model's shape, we will use one or another. It all depends on the type of project. This data is saved in our model, and once the UVs are finished, we will proceed to pack them into UDIMs. To do this, we just need to select any of our models and enter edit mode with our UV interface active. This will allow us to adjust the number of texture tiles needed for our character. With this, we will achieve higher texture resolution and many more fine details than if we had the entire character crammed into a single texture. It's time to take our character to a new level, and we will do this by exporting our entire model to ZBrush to finally start the fun part of this exercise. Blender has an internal tool very similar to ZBrush that has great potential for exactly what we are about to do. However, since I am more familiar with ZBrush, we will use the latter, but I'm mentioning this so you know that this entire step can be done perfectly within Blender. Here, I simply tweaked the base mesh and increased the subdivision to have a smoother mesh and reach a higher level of detail. If you have worked natively with ZBrush before, note that in this case, we won't use Dynamesh. We will only subdivide the mesh as much as your computer allows, and will sculpt the details on. We do this for convenience and to save a lot of time. Now we can maintain our model's topology and its UVs won't be lost. So, open your reference images in a corner of the screen, and let's go. For the cape, we will only generate some folds. I added a relief that looks a bit more organic. For the rest of the fabrics, we will do the same. Hide the models that prevent us from working comfortably and enrich each element one at a time. If in Blender we had neat and smooth fabrics, this is the moment where we must make them more irregular and with many more folds. If you look at the bottom left of the screen, I only use a maximum of 5 brushes. Truthfully, for these types of projects, we don't need more, and in Blender, you can use the same ones. So, I recommend looking for tutorials that specialize in organic modeling in Blender to master them. That way, you can avoid having to pay for a ZBrush subscription, which is usually not cheap. Now, I'll leave you with a snippet of this entire process, and at the end, as always, we will do our comparisons. And after a few minutes, we already have our model ready for the next step. But before moving on, I would like to show you how our character is looking. It's no longer just a clay doll, and now has a much more professional look. If we compare it with the previous results, we can see that this is undoubtedly the turning point in our entire workflow. If you've stayed watching until now, I would like you to give this video a like if you're enjoying it, and subscribe to my channel if you like this kind of content. Remember that throughout these months, I'll be uploading exercises like this to improve my skills in Blender, and, at the same time, improve the features of PolyCave, the add-on I've been using throughout this season. And speaking of the elephant in the room, we need to talk about the bone system in Blender. First of all, I'd like to recommend some very simple and easy to understand tutorials in the description of this video. They are straightforward, and if you've never placed bones in Blender like me, they will be a great help. But returning to the main topic, adding the bones to my character was torture for me. First, because I had everything joined into a single 3D model, and second, because the whole system felt counterintuitive. Bones being controlled from one place, weight painting on the mesh that you don't control directly from the bones but in a separate mesh panel, and weight balancing systems that didn't auto-compensate. Anyway, the beginning was quite stormy, but I managed to adapt to this new system. In 3ds Max, it's much simpler and easier to learn, but I gradually got the hang of it. What you are seeing right now is me battling with all the elements of my 3D model at once. For this specific case, I recommend having your 3D character separated into parts like body, cloth, bandages, and armor. This way, you can work much more comfortably and avoid making rookie mistakes like I did. Also, remember to pose your character in different ways to locate possible weight painting flaws, so the mesh doesn't behave erratically when animating. But hey, after all that, I did it after about 4 hours, I think. But despite everything, I think one positive thing about this exercise is that I'll likely implement new tools into PolyCave to make the whole bone adjustment and UV process more straightforward. In future updates, I think I'll start working on these quality of life improvements. And this was my final result, a character modeled in Blender, refined in ZBrush, and fully rigged, ready to animate. Later on, I'll be adding more details, since with this workflow we can return to any previous stage and modify it without having to start from scratch. Don't forget that in the description of this video, I'll leave the links for PolyCave as well as the 3D model of this character so you can use it in your personal practice projects. along with the tutorials I used as support to pull this project off. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a great week, and I'll see you in the next video.